Soft starlight rests on distant dust, like powder across velvet dark. Far suns offer a warm, steady glow beyond the quiet. Constellation shapes hold their places, while perspective drifts unhurriedly. Deep space shows soft gradients, with distant shimmer along quiet lanes. Slow moons travel in wide orbits around planets turning patiently. Gentle rings circle nearby worlds, releasing faint ice grains into darkness. Nebula haze spreads muted colors, lavender and slate, across long distances. Calm cosmic winds move as soft light, sliding without urgency. Quiet planet nightsides show thin atmospheres traced by dim auroral veils. Soft starlight touches distant dust near the edge of a spiral arm. Far suns remain steady, their light arriving like a slow breath. Deep space textures feel like velvet dark with gentle gradients. Nebula haze gathers muted colors around newborn stars in quiet cradles. Constellation shapes shift slowly as the viewpoint glides between them. Slow moons continue wide orbits, their shadows moving with measured grace. Calm cosmic winds ripple as softened light across the open distance. Gentle rings shine faintly, each ice grain reflecting a delicate glimmer. Quiet planet nightsides turn away from daylight, holding calm darkness. Soft starlight lies on distant dust, outlining curves of drifting lanes. Far suns keep a warm glow that never hurries. Deep space textures settle into soft gradients where galaxies rest far apart. Nebula haze thins into muted colors, barely tinting the darkness. Constellation shapes appear and recede as perspective drifts gently onward. Calm cosmic winds carry light like silk, smoothing every edge. Slow moons in wide orbits pass through pale light and long shadowed arcs. Gentle rings arc around a distant planet, quiet and carefully spaced. Quiet planet nightsides show thin atmospheres as faint halos above dark ground. Soft starlight falls on distant dust, making it look softly brushed. Far suns offer warm, steady glow across distances too large to measure here. Deep space textures look like velvet dark, sprinkled with distant shimmer. Nebula haze lingers in muted colors, drifting like a quiet veil. Constellation shapes soften at the edges as viewpoint glides calmly. Calm cosmic winds move as soft movement of light across empty reaches. Slow moons follow wide orbits with patient timing and gentle turns. Gentle rings hold faint ice grains that sparkle briefly, then settle again. Quiet planet nightsides remain still beneath thin atmospheres and dim starlight. Soft starlight on distant dust grows subtler as the scene becomes quieter. Far suns seem farther now, yet their glow stays even and mild. Deep space textures smooth into softer gradients with fewer shimmering points. Nebula haze fades into muted colors that barely touch the dark. Constellation shapes drift slowly out of frame as perspective continues its glide. Calm cosmic winds become almost imperceptible, only a tender shift in light. Slow moons continue wide orbits in silence between galaxies and stars. Gentle rings dim until only a suggestion of ice grains remains. Very quiet stillness gathers in deep space under dim, steady light. Quiet planet nightsides rest beneath thin atmospheres that barely catch any glow. Soft starlight settles on distant dust with the gentlest possible sheen. Far suns remain warm, steady glow, holding everything in calm silence. Nebula haze lingers nearby, colored in muted mauve and soft teal. The clouds drift with patient ease like slow ink in water. Soft starlight filters through the haze, smoothing every edge and contour. Deep space holds velvet dark gradients behind it, steady and unhurried. A quiet planet nightside turns beneath a thin atmosphere of faint silver. The surface shows no sharp lines, only gentle curves of shadow. Faraway suns offer a warm, steady glow along the planet's rim. The light arrives softly, as if carried on long-distance calm. Gentle rings circle a distant world, barely brighter than surrounding darkness. Faint ice grains glimmer with tiny points that never hurry. A slow moon travels in a wide orbit beyond the ring plane. Its motion feels measured, like breathing counted over long minutes. Constellation shapes stretch and tilt as the drifting perspective continues onward. Lines between stars seem implied, then soften into simple spacing. Deep space textures appear like velvet layers with a distant shimmer. Each shimmer rests calmly, without any sharpness or strain. Calm cosmic winds move as soft movement of light across empty distances. The motion resembles a delicate ripple passing through a quiet field. Nebula haze thins, leaving muted colors suspended like watercolor stains. Soft starlight touches those stains and keeps them gentle. A planet nightside returns in view, its thin atmosphere a pale, translucent arc. The horizon carries a faint gradient from charcoal to deep blue. Far suns maintain their warm, steady glow, never flickering or pressing forward. The planet turns slowly, offering silence with each degree of rotation. Gentle rings appear again, now softer and more diffuse at their edges. Ice grains catch dim light and release it as quiet specks. A slow moon follows its wide orbit with consistent spacing and calm timing. Between ring shadows, deep space looks smooth and evenly dark. Constellation shapes become simpler as distance increases between each point of light. Perspective drifts so gradually that change feels like a whispering current. Soft starlight lies on distant dust, making it look powdered and fine. The dust remains suspended, untroubled within broad, open reaches. Deep space textures grow quieter, velvet dark blending into soft gradients of indigo. Distant shimmer becomes rarer, like scattered dew on black glass. Calm cosmic winds barely shift the light, almost too subtle to notice. Everything rests within spacious silence between galaxies. Nebula haze returns only as a thin veil with muted rose undertones. It floats lightly across the background, never forming heavy shapes. Far suns send warm, steady glow through the veil like filtered lantern light. The glow stays constant, gentle enough to feel weightless. Slow moons continue wide orbits around unseen planets far beyond view. Their paths are suggested by timing rather than visible lines or marks. Quiet planet nightsides linger at the edge of perception under thin atmospheres. Soft starlight brushes those edges and keeps them tender. Very quiet, closing stillness settles across deep space with dim, steady light. Constellation hints loosen into simple points resting far apart from one another. Gentle rings and faint ice grains remain only as a delicate suggestion in darkness. The last shimmer stays soft on distant dust, calm and even. Nebula haze drifts with muted colors, like watercolor held in still air. Soft gradients mingle with velvet dark, and distant shimmer rests quietly. Far suns offer a warm, steady glow, patient and unhurried. Calm cosmic winds move as soft light, sliding along unseen paths. Gentle rings circle a quiet world, carrying faint ice grains in slow arcs. Each grain catches soft starlight, then releases it without hurry. Constellation shapes appear from this angle, then stretch with drifting perspective. Deep space textures remain velvety, with subtle layers of dim color. Slow moons travel wide orbits, their motion felt more than measured. A planet nightside turns gently, keeping thin atmospheres close and calm. Faraway suns lend a steady glow along the rim of darkness. Nebula haze lingers nearby, muted rose and gray moving together. Soft starlight falls on distant dust, making a fine silver veil. Calm cosmic winds pass through that veil as shifting threads of light. Constellations loosen again, points rearranging with the slowest perspective change. Velvet dark surrounds everything, yet holds soft gradients like quiet fabric. Gentle rings return in the distance, pale bands with faint ice grains. The grains drift apart slightly, leaving more space between their glints. A warm, steady glow from far suns settles over the scene. planet nightsides remain peaceful, thin atmospheres tracing delicate curves. Nebula haze thickens softly, muted colors blending into a smooth dusk. Slow moons continue their wide orbits, never hurrying through the dark. Soft starlight touches dust clouds and leaves a faint pearly sheen. Cosmic winds remain calm, moving light like a quiet current. Constellation shapes look simpler now, just a few points at ease. Deep space shows velvet dark with gentle gradients and distant shimmer. Far suns keep their warm, steady glow, small and reliable. Rings and ice grains become quieter details, barely suggested at the edge. A planet turns slowly, nightside foremost under a thin atmosphere line. The atmosphere holds a dim sheen where starlight meets its curve. Nebula haze hangs beyond it in muted blue and soft amber. Moons glide in wide orbits, their presence steady and mild. Cosmic winds soften further, light moving less and resting more often. Soft starlight on distant dust becomes an even wash of pale tone. Constellations drift out of recognizable shapes into scattered points again. Velvet dark feels deeper here, though still layered with quiet gradients. Gentle rings appear as a faint arc. Ice grains sparkle only occasionally now. Far suns continue their warm, steady glow without any sharpness. Nebula haze thins into transparent color that barely tints the dark. A moon passes slowly across that tint, keeping its wide orbit true. Quiet planet nightsides settle into near stillness beneath thin atmospheres. Deep space textures become smoother, velvet dark, holding only faint shimmer far away. Cosmic winds grow almost motionless, light rests in place for longer spans. Soft starlight remains on dust, dimmer but constant and kind. Very quiet, closing stillness spreads again with dim, steady light everywhere present. Constellation hints rest as simple points with no need to connect them. Gentle rings and faint ice grains remain as the softest suggestion in darkness. The last shimmer stays on distant dust. Calm continues without change now. A few constellations linger as patient shapes, drifting with a slow perspective. Lines between stars feel optional, like threads laid loosely across distance. The viewing angle glides and the patterns shift without effort. Each point keeps its place, while the mind floats gently nearby. Cosmic winds move as soft light, sliding across empty reaches of space. The motion feels like a quiet current, steady and unhurried. Pale beams drift past, touching nothing, leaving no trace behind. Even the movement seems to slow, as if listening to itself. Velvet dark stretches wide, textured by soft gradients and distant shimmer. Faint glints appear like quiet grains scattered across a deep cloth. The darkness holds them tenderly, without sharp edges or contrast. Everything looks smoother now, as though space polishes its own surface. Dim, steady light gathers into a calm stillness that fills the frame. Nothing asks for attention, and nothing pulls away from rest. The silence between galaxies feels spacious and comfortably complete. A gentle hush settles deeper, with only the slightest glow remaining. Soft starlight falls on distant dust, turning it into a muted silver veil. Tiny particles drift slowly, each one catching a brief touch of light. The dust forms delicate lanes that curve and loosen in quiet arcs. In this far reach, brightness stays low and evenly spread. A pair of moons travels in wide orbits, unhurried around a quiet planet. Their surfaces turn gradually, showing pale plains and darker patches in balance. The orbit lines feel broad and patient, drawn across long nights. Each revolution continues with measured ease, never rushing any moment. Nebula haze spreads in muted colors like softened paint suspended in airless space. Gentle greens and faint rose tones blend without any hard boundary. The cloud shifts little by little, almost too slow to notice. It rests around distant stars like a thin scarf of color. On a planet nightside, thin atmosphere holds a subtle rim of twilight glow. City lights are absent, leaving only natural shading across continents below. High clouds appear as faint smudges that drift along silent currents. The horizon keeps its curve in calm darkness under steady starlight. Gentle rings circle a far world, made of faint ice grains turning quietly together. They catch light in narrow bands, then return to shadowed softness again. The ring plane tilts slowly, changing how it reflects the distant sun. Each grain follows its path with simple consistency and calm. Far suns offer warm, steady glow from places too distant to name easily. Their light arrives softened by miles of quiet space and time. It lays a mild sheen on passing rocks and drifting dust trails. Even warmth feels restrained here, more like memory than heat. Constellation shapes grow simpler again as perspective drifts farther outward now. Star points remain clear while imagined lines loosen into open spacing again. The sky feels wider than before, yet also more settled and plain. With each breath-like moment, patterns become quieter and more spare. Very quiet stillness closes in gently, with dim, steady light remaining everywhere present. Distant shimmer reduces to a few soft points resting within velvet dark space. Cosmic winds pause as barely moving light that lingers without change longer now. Planets turn slowly onward while silence stays smooth and undisturbed around them. Velvet dark stretches on with soft gradients layered like deep ink. A distant shimmer rests far off, delicate and evenly spaced. Soft starlight brushes thin dust, giving it a quiet silver tone. The space between galaxies feels smooth, with nothing pressing or pulling. Nebula haze drifts in muted colors, like mist touched by gentle light. Pale violet and dim teal mingle without edges or sharp contrast. Far suns offer a warm, steady glow, small and patient. Their light reaches slowly, as if traveling through calm water. Slow moons travel wide orbits, keeping generous distance from their planets. Each moon turns with an unhurried rhythm, steady and regular. Below them, quiet nightsides show faint contours under minimal light. Thin atmospheres hold a soft rim of color at the edges. Gentle rings circle a distant world with faint ice grains floating nearby. The grains glint softly, then settle back into dimness again. Constellation shapes shift as perspective drifts, lines stretching into new angles. The motion remains gradual, like a slow turn of thought. Calm cosmic winds appear as soft movement of light across empty reaches. They carry no sound, only a subtle change in brightness. Velvet dark deepens around the glow, holding it comfortably in place. Distant shimmer becomes finer, like dust caught in far beams. Nebula haze returns in quieter tones, more gray than color now. The mist spreads thinly, leaving broad spaces of still darkness. Soft starlight falls on distant dust and makes it look velvety. The dust drifts gently, never gathering into anything hurried. Far suns remain as warm, steady glow points along the horizon of space. Their light stays constant and mild across long distances. Slow moons keep circling in wide orbits with calm precision. Each pass feels familiar, like a repeated pattern softened by time. Quiet planet nightsides rotate into view with subdued shading and calm edges. Thin atmospheres show faint bands where starlight grazes them lightly. Gentle rings continue their slow sweep, ice grains moving in neat arcs. Everything holds to an even pace without interruption. Constellation shapes grow looser again as drifting perspective widens the field. Stars keep their places while the imagined lines relax further apart. Deep space textures show soft gradients that blend without any boundary lines. Distant shimmer becomes a whisper of brightness against velvet dark. Very quiet stillness settles deeper now, with dim, steady light remaining nearby. Calm cosmic winds slow further, barely shifting light across open distance. Nebula haze thins until only a muted tint lingers at the margins. Silence between galaxies feels broader and smoother with each passing moment. Soft starlight rests on distant dust in a steady, gentle wash. Far suns keep their warm glow while seeming smaller than before now. Slow moons continue wide orbits, their turning almost too gradual to notice. Quiet planet night sides remain serene beneath thin atmospheres that hold faint sheen. Velvet dark closes around everything with soft gradients smoothing all contrast away. Distant shimmer reduces to sparse points that stay calm and constant. Gentle rings and faint ice grains drift more quietly, nearly blending together now. Very quiet stillness persists with dim, steady light resting everywhere present here. Nebula haze carries muted colors like soft ink in clear water. Constellation shapes linger and perspective drifts with unhurried grace. Calm cosmic winds move light gently across the farthest distances. Soft starlight falls on distant dust, keeping each grain quietly visible. Slow moons trace wide orbits, their shadows sliding across pale surfaces. Far suns offer a warm, steady glow without any sharp edges. Quiet planet night sides hold thin atmospheres, barely catching a silver sheen. Deep space textures feel like velvet dark with soft gradients and distant shimmer. Gentle rings circle a patient world, and faint ice grains glint softly. Nebula haze thins into muted color bands that drift without direction. Constellation shapes seem to rotate as the viewpoint glides onward. Calm cosmic winds carry a soft movement of light between quiet regions. Soft starlight rests on distant dust, forming a delicate veil across space. Slow moons remain in wide orbits, keeping even spacing and measured turns. Far suns keep warm, steady glow like lanterns behind frosted glass. Quiet planet night sides appear smooth, with thin atmospheres breathing faintly. Deep space textures stretch outward, velvet dark with subtle gradients everywhere. Gentle rings soften into pale arcs, and faint ice grains drift apart. Nebula haze becomes more transparent, leaving only muted traces of color. Calm cosmic winds quiet further, moving light in barely noticed ripples. Constellation shapes grow simpler as perspective continues its slow drifting motion. Soft starlight touches distant dust with an even gentler wash now. Slow moons pass calmly, their wide orbits steady and unchanging. Far suns remain warm, steady glow, dimmer yet still comforting. Quiet planet night sides settle deeper into shadow under thin atmospheres. Gentle rings become quieter lines, almost merging with surrounding darkness. Deep space textures smooth into velvet dark with a faint distant shimmer. Nebula haze lingers as muted colors that barely tint the black. Calm cosmic winds slow to near stillness, shifting light by small degrees. Constellation shapes loosen slightly as perspective drifts beyond familiar patterns. Soft starlight on distant dust becomes sparse like fine powder afloat. Far suns hold steady glow that seems far away and mild. Very quiet closing stillness gathers with dim, steady light remaining present. Deep space textures rest as velvet dark with softened gradients and shimmer. Quiet planet night sides keep their thin atmospheres nearly invisible at this distance. Everything stays calm and gentle.